Good morning. Good morning. It's Make It Happen Monday. It's 9 o'clock and we are talking about stories that help you to achieve success without stress. We're sharing strategies of what works for other people, but also things that really haven't worked in order to make sure that you don't make the same mistakes that we have. And today is no different. Today, I'm really grateful and really excited to have Mandy Healy from Aspiration Station with us, who's going to be talking about email liberation. So if you are ever really frustrated by the amount of emails you've got, do you feel like emails take up so much of your time and energy every day, and you'd like to achieve success without stress, then this is the show for you. However, as some of you may know, is I'm all about spotting patterns. You might notice a pattern this week that, just like David last week, we don't have a video. Now, I thought it was just David's stuff last week. Made the assumption, but of course this time it's happened again with Mandy, so now I'm thinking maybe I do need to check something in my settings. So our apologies now, but we do have, and please give a warm welcome to Mandy Healy. We do have the wonderful photograph of this gorgeous soul, and I know as soon as you hear us speaking, you'll be able to hear her nice and clearly, and we'll be able to find out. So welcome, Mandy.
Good morning, Cheryl. I'm very excited to be here.
I am so pleased, because I know when we chatted to you, chat about email, but also I said to you, didn't I, when I first met you, one of the things that just the way that you work, so I'm faffing around trying to take that banner thing off. I don't do that, then I can concentrate and listen. Is you live this work with the emails, and the minute I met you, your email responses, your auto responses, you've got little tricks in the trade that you've got that really let people know when you're going to be available to listen, when you're going to be available to respond. And even the liaisons that you and I have had after our meetings, you're very efficient and very effective. And I know that I aspire to be as organized as you are when it comes to email communication. So without any further ado, we're going to find out today what you're making happen, which is always the exciting part of the show for me, because everybody's out there doing their thing and they've got things to share with people. And then we're talking about the theme in this series about push. Clients often talk about pushing themselves to do things or pushing themselves outside their comfort zone. And I know you and I have had a conversation about emails, and that when we're going to change our behavior with them, it can push some buttons. It can make people uncomfortable. And so we're hopefully going to get some hints and tips from you about what's worked for you personally and what is working for your clients. So without any further ado, what is it that you're making happen?
Well, first of all, Cheryl, thank you for inviting me on your show. I'm a big fan, and to actually be interviewed by you is a real privilege. So I'm very grateful for that. What am I making happen? Well, I suppose the most important thing this year that I'm making happen is I have launched and I'm growing my own business. And that took an awful lot of courage after 29 and a half years in the Admiral Group, where I was a senior manager, making things happen in a very different way. So as I developed my passion for learning and development, and my natural nature is that I'm extremely helpful and I like to make other people's day better, I was wondering how I could channel all my energy and all of my experience from my leadership role to help other people. So, I've launched my business, coaching and training, two things I absolutely love, as you know, and I'm attracting new clients and helping them, move forward, which is what it's all about, right?
Yeah. And so you talk about courage then, because I think that's a really key attribute when you're pushing yourself outside your comfort zone, which is very much the series that we're talking about in this series. So where does courage come from for you?
Well, my personal journey involved a bit of a health scare during the pandemic. So as well as having a senior role with a lot of responsibility, suddenly my world was shaken a little bit. And what that led to, Cheryl, was a lot of personal reflection. And if I'm going to give anyone advice today, it is take a little time for personal reflection so that you can really think about what's working for you and what isn't.
Yeah.
And for me, my senior leadership role had brought me tremendous success and helped me meet, people who will be lifelong friends. I'm so grateful for my career at Admiral, but I started to realize it was time to change. And that courage came up like a butterfly taking flight. That's my logo. That says a lot about me, that transformation from senior leader to coach and trainer.
So for you, it's this reflection, and then for you, that butterfly came from it. So what happened? What kind of reflection is that? What? Because this is a word I use actually in my book. It's chapter 5 about the 5 steps to clarity. But I talk to a lot of people, and like you say, they don't have time to reflect, or they don't like going back. They use that kind of language. So what is reflection for you?
So reflection for me is about honesty with myself, because I pride myself on how honest I have been with my team, with my managers, with my family, and with my friends. But sometimes we're so busy, doing what we think is right for other people, we forget to be honest with ourselves. And I think I had this realization that I didn't like the role I was doing anymore. And I guess that made me feel a bit guilty, because I had such a successful career. I felt like I should be grateful and loyal. And I felt like a square peg in a round hole. So I just needed to be really honest. So that's what the reflection was. Discover what's not working and do something about it. Take action, right?
Yeah, I think I did an interview a few years ago about guilt, and that's an interesting one, because I think for me, guilt's a really great one to be aware of when we feel guilty. Often for me, it's an alarm bell or a warning that a core value or a need isn't being met. And it might be that we make up stories that if we meet our needs, somebody else is going to have to go without. And in fact, I was commenting today on LinkedIn this whole thing about, putting yourself first. I've never felt comfortable with that, but putting yourself equal to. So if you're going to be equally honest with other people, it's that equal honesty with yourself is what I'm inferring or making up from what I've just heard. So when you've been honest and you have that reflection, is there anything else that happens between that honesty and courage?
Oh, now that is one of your very deep, thought-provoking questions, Cheryl. Thank you.
I thought you'd be okay with it. You do know on this show you can reject any question you like. I felt safe to dig a bit deeper with you and find out what it is.
Yeah, honesty and reflection. What comes in between? I'm a person who takes comfort from steps. So I kind of, when I'm going from I'm making a decision or I'm starting something new, if I take incremental steps, that is more comfortable for me. Yeah. And in fact, I've realized as a coach, when people are, really daunted by change, encouraging them to take incremental steps quite often brings them success quicker.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I feel like, once I've had that honest realization and I need to get to courage, it's all about, I guess, making a plan, because being so organized and effective as I am, making a plan to achieve each of those steps builds the courage. Yeah. So the first thing I did was I started thinking about my branding, what my website would be, the look and feel, so that I could portray my warmth and experience as a learning and development professional. And once I saw my headshots and what my logo looked like, then I became really excited. And that's when the courage started to build into something that was absolutely going to make this business a success.
Absolutely. And that, no surprise that I like Step by Step, because the company's called Step by Step Listening. I'm very, very similar in that way. And it sounds like, as well, I talk about people, when you've got clarity, when you really understand what it is you're working towards and you can connect with that and you know why, then it does fuel your motivation, doesn't it, and your drive to get over those uncomfortable parts of any change process, there's going to be a discomfort, which brings us on to this thing that you've got a program called Email Liberation.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that. And then, what things tend to push people outside their comfort zone when it comes to changing behavior around emails? So tell us a bit about the course first.
Okay, well, first of all, I'm going to rewind a bit into why I wrote the course in the first place, because when I was a senior leader, I had a team of 70, 14 external suppliers, lots of responsibility, and lots of things in that role had a sense of urgency. The nature of my role as customer accounts manager meant that you couldn't do something tomorrow. When you're dealing with customers' money, it's vitally important that everything happens like right away. So email sort of was coming in at such a pace that it wasn't possible to even read them or let alone do anything with them. And I realized, number one, that wasn't manageable. And number two, I was paid to manage, people and customers, and yet I was spending the lion's share of my time as an administrator for email. And I thought I should be doing different things. I should be listening to my team and improving our systems to make a better customer journey. So being a sort of accountsy person, the first thing I did was measure the problem. Yeah. So how many emails I had at the time, 1,800 unread emails. How did that make me feel? Worried that I was missing something important. And I didn't think I was ever going to get through them. So I'd start at the top and work down. I'd start at the bottom and work up. I'd try and, delete ones that were very obviously not needing action. But every technique I used just wasn't working. So I decided to have a clean slate and a fresh start and, develop techniques that would help with the decision-making process. So when you do the skim read, are you going to do something with it or not? A lot of people leave emails in their inbox or flag them to come back to when they're less busy. And what I help people realize when they join my workshops, they're never going to have a day when they're not busy. So do you know what? Those emails they didn't deal with yesterday are still there, but they're going to get new ones today too. And it keeps on rolling. So what I did might sound a bit sad, but I timed how long it took me to read the average email, and it was 30 seconds. 30 seconds doesn't sound like a long time. But if you multiply that by 1,800 or even 50, let's say you get 50 emails a day, it soon adds up. And if you can have good decision-making ability and find ways to categorize those emails early on, then you'll have a lot more time to do important things. So that's really what email liberation is all about, freeing up time. And feedback consistently tells me that, busy professionals, whether they work in a corporate organization or they're a business owner, they save 10 hours a month. And that's a lot of time.
It is. It's absolutely vital, isn't it? So what talking about the theme of pushing yourself outside the comfort zone. So when people have got 1,800, I got your example, they've got 18 unread emails, and they're going to transform that into a system or a process where they can save half an hour a day, is what we've talked about, 10 hours a month.
Yeah.
What are the sort of typical things that really push people outside their comfort zone? What do you find that people are most uncomfortable with when it comes to changing behavior around their emails?
So we've grown this world with fabulous technology that puts us under pressure to react instantly. Yeah, if I want to order some new fairy lights for my garden, I can order them on Amazon. They're going to turn up today. So everything is instant. And I think, people might be working on something really important, like preparing for an interview or a presentation, and the email will ping, they'll get a notification on their phone or their laptop, and they go to it. And I think being a very helpful person, one of the hardest things for me was saying no or not now.
Mm-hmm.
Because I, by my very nature, want to say, yes, of course, I'll help you and I'll do it right away. But when you look at email or any task, in fact, and you reflect and prioritize it, so that the important things happen first, email will be well down the list, and yet we allow ourselves to be distracted by it. We pay attention to it. And if you want to look for a pattern, people's plans for their very important work in the day will be derailed by email.
Yeah.
Up until they come on the course with me.
Yeah, well, I can relate to that because you've got some really good strategy, and you coach people through what I'm going to put into the sort of the emotional barriers that they're worrying about upsetting people, don't want to do those sorts of things. But I also see people where they've received an email, and maybe it's some feedback, or an email to say that someone wants to cancel their contract or anything like that, and actually emotionally it can you're really highly focused, really motivated to do something, and before you know it, you're, like you say, your attention's not just being taken away by the email, but it's off in the ether thinking about something else, which wasn't where you wanted your attention to be prior to that conversation. And I guess where I correlate that with listening and asking questions is that we often don't we have a random conversation, someone just gives us an opinion or a suggestion or gives us some feedback that we weren't asking for or even needed in the moment, and then you're forced to think about it because that thought's being put there by the question or the direction of the attention. And that's the bit I find, for me, I've had to learn how to breathe through it and almost park when I'm going to deal with that. Is like, well, actually, that wasn't where my attention was earlier. That I'll deal with that at 2:00 this afternoon, or that's going to have to be 3:00 late, the 3:00. What works for you in terms of helping clients? Because I can almost feel that feeling. I can relive it quite quickly right now. The times when emails have come in and they've actually sort of wasn't what I was expecting to read, and therefore it's kind of thrown my system out of kilter somewhat. What works for you and your clients when you get those kinds of emails to manage that impact?
So because of the way we work with the categorization, you hit the nail on the head there. You do this skim read and decision making, and then you decide, is it what I call a quick win that you can deal with now? So, if you emailed me this morning and said, Mandy, is it okay we start 15 minutes later? I could ping a response and say, yes, that's fine. Or, no, I've got to go somewhere straight after, and it's done.
Yeah.
But the ones that either stir up, as you say, an emotional response, or they've got work that is going to take longer than you have right now, it is about moving it to a time when you can pay attention to it. So that is exactly what I do. And when you mentioned the sort of guilt emotions that, I can't deal with it right now and that person might expect me to, I use a technique I call flip it. And I use this both in the training workshops and when I'm coaching. So when somebody is feeling guilt, I ask them to reverse it and think about when somebody has said no to them. So I'll say, if somebody doesn't instantly reply to your email, do you think they're a really bad, unhelpful person? And of course, most of the time people will say, well, no, that's fine. Of course, they're busy. I understand.
Yeah.
And, when they understand it from the reverse point of view, sometimes it does help them, realize that they don't have to be chained to email 24/7.
Yeah. And it's interesting because you and I have talked about where there might be some synergy where using Clean to unpack saying no for you is like what we've talked about. So if you are watching this show and you're interested, please contact myself or Mandy, get in touch with us via LinkedIn or Facebook, social media, or via our website, because we're curious about that. Because I know that for me, one of the things that I had to do to be better at saying no to other people is I had to make it okay for other people to say no to me. So I realized part of the reason I didn't like saying no is because when people said no to me, it used to feel like like a brick wall had gone up and like I'd been pushed away. And it was a real strong sense of rejection, which when investigated was definitely a younger version of me. It was not the adult that was present today. There was a younger version of me that was feeling really hurt and excluded. And I can't remember how old it was when I unpacked it, but there was a 7-year-old, I think, that had been told no, that was really not happy with it. And actually that was influencing my adult decisions today in the present day. So I used to frame things with people saying, I'm just going to ask you to do this, and I need you to know it's okay to say no. You're not the only person I can ask. There will be other people I can ask. I'm just coming to you first. And I'd make sure that I built enough people up so that I was really clear. And occasionally I might say to my husband, like, I've asked everybody else, you are my last resort. And please don't say no. And generally, I think when you build your network up, so one of the things it was for me that sort of my flip it was rather than, it wasn't to do with actually, what would I think? I would think of other people, they're busy. I make allowances for other people, but wouldn't make allowances for myself. That was definitely part of my model. Yeah. But it was this thing about me personally getting more comfortable with people saying no to me, because the more comfortable I got with people saying no to me, and I made it okay for other people to say, and I consciously did it, rather, I'd say to people, look, it's okay to say no. Of course, I was modeling that behavior, that when I then had to say to them, no, I can't do that at the moment, or that I don't ever really say no. I go, that's not going to work. I don't think I actually say no. Yeah, that's just a bit of it. I haven't just noticed that. So
you're helping me to reflect there, actually, Cheryl. Sorry to interrupt.
No, please do. It's your interview.
You're making me think about, the journey to sign up a new coaching client. So you get connected with somebody, you offer them a discovery call, and it's very much no obligation. If I'm not your cup of tea, that's absolutely fine. It's been lovely to chat anyway. And then, of course, some of those convert into a paid coaching client. And that's one of the parts of my journey while I was building my business, is understanding that whereas in my corporate role, everything was sort of put on a plate really for me, what I did, there was always success to be had every day. As a business owner, people are going to say no, and that is fine. Somebody gave me some very good advice early on, and that is, if you pitch to 10 clients and 2 of them say yes to you, they're the right 2. And that has stayed with me, because we do have to be able to process what is.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it reminds me, actually, because you forget, don't you, the journey you've been on. And I'm thinking from a sales perspective and from a business perspective, I was really comfortable with no's, because I was like, well, that's okay. I'm not the right person, or it's not the right time. But I've forgotten, I used to work for Halifax. And when we merged with Halifax, with the estate agents, and we took over Halifax estate agents, we had the estate agency company, their department, come and do our training for the sales training. And obviously, I imagine the estate agent training is much more proactive selling than we'd ever had to do on the counter. We were normally looking after savings and mortgages and loans, but they wanted us to become more sales orientated as a team. And I remember this one stuck in my head. He said, look, for every 9 no's, you'll get 1 yes. So you just have to start to really enjoy the no's. Yeah. And it was just like, and so I used to have a chart, and I'd cross off and put a star every time I got a no, because it's like, yes, I'm 3 closer towards the yes one. And I did a similar process, because I think Richard Branson said something like, you're going to make 200 mistakes before you're going to be successful. So I remember having a 200 grid thing on. And my PA, Helen, at the time when I very first launched the company, every time we did something and we made a mistake, in inverted commas, i.e. we learned something that didn't work, we would tick it off and celebrate, because we were like, we're nearly successful because we've nearly done our 200 mistakes. So I think there is definitely something, isn't there, in the email marketing, for definitely email management. But I think in life generally, there's this thing about being okay with saying no, and being okay with other people saying no to you. I've got told it for years, don't take it personally. Easier said than done, I have to say. Whoever's live with us today, we've got 2 people live and we've got love hearts coming through. So thank you for that. Please do say hello. If you've got any questions for Mandy about email liberation, what's your biggest frustration about email, please get in touch with us. What really drives you mad about it? And share your strategies. What's worked for you? What is currently working for you? And if you are interested in making your email system work better, then please do get in touch with Mandy. And if you are someone that struggles with saying no, then Mandy and I we're putting it out there to the universe and just finding out, does anybody want us to put on a 2-hour workshop where we explore saying no views like what? And also, good morning, Susie. Thank you for joining us. And we look also at emails for you are like what? And let's just find out what people's current experiences are and what you'd like to have happen. And I know that with Mandy there, with her wisdom, she's got lots of tips and tricks that she can share with you, having developed it. I can't imagine having 1,800 in my inbox. So I know that you've definitely coming from a place where I'm lucky. Mine's always at 0 every day by the end of the day, but I don't have that many to manage. So I'm very fortunate, I guess, or I don't have many friends. Not sure which way to look at that. Don't have very many connections contacting me that way.
Well, Cheryl, I will say, having worked with business owners and in my corporate world, what I've done is I've obviously sort of transformed the way I use the techniques. They do still work as a business owner, but I met people with like 40,000 emails, and it was hard for me to get my head around that.
Yeah, I met somebody the other day who, as a CEO, said he deletes every single email that comes in his inbox without reading them. Wow. Because his attitude is, if it's that important, they'll email again. That put the fear of God in me. I was like, oh my goodness, I can't imagine. Susie just put, I've got 23,000 in my team email, as it's my subscribe email. My main email is cleared 3 times a day. Nice. So yeah, I guess that's one of the strategies, isn't it, Mandy, that you talk about, is you might filter things off that you know are going to be more from that. I mean, I do. There's certain emails that come in, and I haven't organised that yet. As I'm listening to you, and you're making me reflect now, Mandy. Is nice. I'm thinking about that. Occasionally, I've signed up for something for somebody, and I've used my Cheryl at Step-by-Step Listening email, and therefore now in my main inbox, which is usually kept for client work, I've got newsletters coming in, which is really not great, because I sometimes want to read them and sometimes I don't. So I will have a look at that, because what I've realized with what you're saying is I do delete, and I do put marked as read, and I clear the inbox, because I know that's something that's really important, to have that feeling of like everything's a clear kind of feeling. But I'm also wondering, how much time it takes me since I knew we had this interview booked in. I've been noticing how much time I spend in a day deleting and marking as unread. And what belief have I got around that I have to have read them? Yeah, so that's a whole different. That's probably my feeling that people need to be heard and understood is a big driver for me. That to ignore something or someone isn't okay. It's a core belief of mine. I am aware of the time. If there's anything else, we've got a couple more minutes. We want to just share anything else you'd like to share with our audience today, Mandy. But if you are listening back to this on replay, please put #replay. Please tell us, like Susie says, your emails for you at the moment are like what? And saying no or ignoring an email, basically, even if you don't say it to the person, you might have to say to yourself, no, I'm not going to respond to that yet, or I'm not going to respond to that at all. That's like what for you? And if you are interested in finding out more about Mandy's courses, please go to her website, which is just here. And if you look under the training, the time management and the Email Liberation are both there. And you can just book a no obligation call, as Mandy just said. Go and have a chat to Mandy about it, because imagine if you could get 10 hours a month back and actually delete the stress of feeling guilty every time you looked at your inbox. What difference would that make to your performance? What difference would that make to your relationships when you get home, knowing that you haven't carried that stress from work to home? And in the modern day world where most of us are working from home, or a lot of us are, it's going to be even more important that we find ways and strategies to settle our system and state. So before we wrap up today, Mandy, is there anything else you'd like to say to our viewers about email liberation, pushing out the comfort zone, saying no, or anything else that comes to your mind?
I'd like to thank you for the opportunity today, and for anyone who's watching or listening that hasn't met me yet, please connect with me on LinkedIn, because I do share some little tips, just like Cheryl, and we're connected. I'd love to help, love to have a chat to you if that would be helpful. Just quickly on the push bit, Cheryl, the saying no. One of the things I ask people to think about is, when somebody asks something from you, what are the answers that you can give? And of course, the obvious ones are yes and no, but there are two other ones for me, and I'm just quickly going to share them with your viewers today.
Please do.
One is yes, but not now. Yes, I can go shopping for you, Mem, but that's going to be Friday because I'm busy Monday to Thursday. So that's one thing. And most people are fine with that. You're still being helpful, but you're telling them when you're free.
Yeah.
And then the other one is maybe not me. It could be that if I'm still working, but my husband's at home and, a neighbour needs a pint of milk, they ask me, I might actually delegate that task and do a favour trade there.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah. Alternatives often work.
Yeah, and I think it's important to think about those, and it brings us into our, we could have a whole new show about that. So perhaps we will have another discussion in a few weeks' time about the whole delegating and asking for help. But definitely, think about in advance, as Mandy has said, what answers would you be comfortable to say that would give you a bit of breathing space, a bit of time? I know for me, it's usually I have to use the and. I really want to help you, and I'm not available at that time. I really want to help you, and I have to do that statement first before I can say the other bit. And that works for me if I join it up with this is what I want, and this, I've got this on at this time, or I've got this on that, whatever. And let's find out what works for you, because that's where the gems come from, is when we can all share these things. It's like going to a great sweetie shop and you can try all the flavors you like, and you'll find the one that works for you. And not everything, some people really don't like those sour, I don't like them very much, those sour sweets, and other people really like rhubarb and custards. So it's if we can all share our resources and strategies, that's what I really believe, that we get into this opportunity to share what works for us, then other people have the opportunity to try different things on for size. But with the main outcome is that you're liberated from your emails. Thank you so much for joining us today on this week's show, and I'll see you shortly once we've finished.
Thank you.
Sorry, that's very rude. Shut you out the door then. We are done now. I'm going to close the door. So, sorry, you were going to say, Mandy.
That's okay. So the stream has stopped now.
It hasn't yet. I'm going to just finish now. I heard you say thank you and I cut you out. So for those of you that are listening in, you can tell it's live, can't you? There's no editing going on here. So I would like to say thank you for being on the show, and I'll see you shortly.
Thank you.
So for those who've watched Make It Happen Monday regularly, this is the time where I say thank you for listening to us, but now it's time to listen to yourself. Now that you know what you know, what difference does knowing that make? It's all very well with social media, with the internet. You're out there listening, paying attention to what everybody else is thinking or feeling. But as Mandy said in today's show, are you taking time to reflect and think about what you honestly think? What do you want? And without any further ado, let's do the clean setup for the week. So thinking about what you've learned today and what else is going on in your world, what would you like to have happen? Write down what you've said. Check in with yourself. Definitely what Wendy said, are you being really honest with yourself? Is that what you really want? Or is that what you think everybody else will be accepting and happy with? Is that what you think other people will say yes to? And it avoids conflict or misunderstandings or any uncomfortable conversations. So just check with yourself. Are you being really honest? Are you talking about what you want or talking about what you don't want? And if you talk about what you don't want, think about when you don't have that, then what happens? And see if you can get your statement, your answer, your response to be outcome focused. Once you've got clarity of what you want, have a think about how do you need to be? And what's coming up for me, I haven't spoken to Mandy today, is I need to be more thoughtful. I need to be I need a pause between the request and my response. How do you need to be? What kind of you is that you that will make that happen? And for you to be like that and for you to get the outcome that you want, what kind of resource and support might you need? Now, that might just be you need some time. So you might need to say no to somebody or not yet. It might be that you need some coloured pens and some Post-it notes and a clear wall to put all your ideas up. You might need someone to listen and ask you questions. But it's probably the question that I know, those that are really good at helping everybody else, often when asked how could I best support you right now? They're like, I have no idea. So if you do nothing else today, have a think about what kind of resource and support you might need. And it might be resource and support from yourself, and it could be from the people around you, or you might need help and support from people outside your network. And as always, if you're really struggling to find out what help and support you need, that's where I can help. I can help you to listen to yourself and find out what you need in order that you can build the support network around you to get that success without stress. So without any further ado, have an amazing week, and I'll see you again next Monday.